Hey, welcome everyone to the SVK Media Network, where Chef Liana and I bring on guests from various industries within the food and beverage and hospitality and ag business. And this is a season where we bring on women specifically that get to talk about their business and the industry they're in.
It's not about turning on the lights, starting the grill, and prepping the food. You put on an apron, flip the open sign, and ready for the day. Regulars sit at the same spot and tell stories that bring smiles. Some days can be chaos, challenging. You persevere because you have an undaunted passion, a calling to make people feel welcome and warm. Guests come and go, some you may never see again. The restaurant business is heaven and hell. It's laughter and tears, forever changing and extremely challenging. When the day is done, feeling exhausted, yet somehow content, you smile, knowing tomorrow you get to do it all again. And you wouldn't change a thing.
Hey, everyone. So today we've brought on two special guests. Our first guest is Debbie Gust, who is the president and owner of Wow Factors Dessert. Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
Our other guest is Rita Kim, who's the CEO at Partners for Growth Advisory Services. Hi, Kim. Or Rita, sorry.
We practice this, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I go half the time by Kim, the other half by Rita. And thank you, and hello.
So we're really excited to have you on the show. We got a chance to talk to you before, and we learned a little bit about you. And I think Liana's going to ask you an open question just to kind of get started and learn a little bit.
Yeah. First of all, we were talking about earlier about having these live stream shows. It's great and not great, and we love it. But also, it is live, so we Mel and I both don't know when these commercial breaks are. So you're killing yourself because we're like, oh no, Jade, we're going back to commercials. We have no idea when these are on. So please help us. Anyways, we're back on. So first of all, Debbie and Rita, the burning first question is, how did you both get started in the business, and where did you get your business idea and inspiration from? Drum roll, Debbie, you go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you both and to Jay for having me on here as well. Nice to meet you, Rita. I'm super excited to be here. Well, I'm here to talk about Wow Factor Desserts. And I'd like to take credit for starting this business. I'm actually a second generation owner. And I kind of have grown up with this business. We are 40 years old, started in 1982 out of Sherwood Park, Alberta. And so, to where we are today. And I grew up with eating the desserts, but I really entered running in this business probably I'm almost getting close to 15 years ago. So just to give you a little bit of a backdrop of our company, actually I have my brochure here so you can see the logo, Wow Factor Desserts. We were originally known as the European Cheesecake Factory, and we sold our name to the Cheesecake Factory restaurants way back then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a little bit of history. We're still in our same location, our footprint 40 years ago. And the concept came from a husband and wife, a young couple who sort of were working in the oil and gas industry, and they lost their jobs just with the boom and the bust of the Alberta economy. And the woman, her name is Joanne, and her mother was a master baker. And she thought, well, I've been taught by my mom, so maybe that's something we can do on the side until we can get a job and get back into the corporate world. And so they started baking cheesecakes and quiches in their basement apartment. And they had a really great product. And they were sort of selling it to local flea markets and local grocery stores. But they needed to scale up and move into something bigger where they can start manufacturing it on a bigger scale. And my dad, he was in sort of the energy business. So he was a senior VP in that world. And we moved around a lot, our family. And he met the gentleman who started it at Toastmasters, the public speaking. And that's what they met. And they forged a friendship. And my dad just had a lot of years of advice and knowledge and life experiences and a maturity and an outlook to look at it and go, I know how I can help you. And so he sort of got involved, I would say, probably within the first 6 months that the company started. And he became a shareholder and a board member and invest in that. And it's grown to what it is today. And so our family did move back to Ontario. My dad left that big corporate world, funny enough, and we now have 5 different family businesses in completely different industries. So we became very entrepreneurial. But he was a very big on governance. That was his background. So we do have a board of directors, and we do things right, and we have the right kind of advice and counsel around us to help us as we navigate and grow. And I would say we have about 115 employees. So our bakery is in Sherwood Park. And then we just bought a distribution facility 10 minutes in Edmonton. So we bake all of our desserts, and then we drive them 10 minutes, and then we store them all there. And then we ship. We have another distribution here in Ontario. So we're coast to coast and also into the US. So It's been a really great ride. And honestly, we still have recipes in our lineup that we've had for over 30 years. We still make all of our cakes by hand. Oh. And it's all homemade recipes. So our caramel is made from scratch. Our cream cheese is made from scratch. We even make our own condensed milk. All of our mousses are homemade. And that's
my gosh.
And there's so many times over the period of time over the last decade where, you're getting requests to supply desserts in certain areas. And you think, well, if I do that, I become more high volume and it's lower margin, but also then we can't use the really good ingredients that we use. And then really, that's really not us. And we know what we do well. So we just have been sticking in our lane, and it's worked really well for us. So, but just to back up a little bit, I basically came into the business, the husband and wife left the business, and we became majority shareholders about 15 years ago. And that's when my dad, in his early 70s, became president of this company. And so I want to give a shout out to my dad, who still is my boss. He's still chair. And the really fantastic story is my dad just graduated from Harvard University.
No.
This past June, and it took him 4 years. So you're never too old to stop learning. And one of the biggest inspirations, and if anybody who's listening to this podcast gets a chance to go over my LinkedIn, I have great pictures there. And it's a really heartwarming story of what led him to there and why it was so important to do this in sometime in his life. And he did it. So that's who my mentor is. And
wow.
He sort of brought me into the business, and then I became president. And I think a lot of people, we've forged really strong relationships with Cisco over the time, and things have changed. And
that is the definition of wow.
Thank you.
Gee, I have a question. So when you were talking about your second generation, and you were talking about earlier you had boys, do you think your family will be going into this business or one of your businesses?
Yeah, quite possibly. I think they've been groomed to be always thinking from that 30,000 foot level. They are really true entrepreneurs. Everybody, our conversations at the dinner table with all my siblings, they're lively. And but I feel like, no, go out and you always dreamed about what you want to be when you grow up. Go find that. Go work for the big corporate world. See what culture is like. See how important it is, how you would like to be treated. And I feel like those experiences that I had, I've lived a very interesting life prior to this. And then coming now in my own business, there's a lot that I've learned. And that's how I manage my business. Try to be with a servant leadership stance. So.
Wow, that's cool. Rita, what about you? What did your business ideas come from, or your inspiration? I know you have some exciting news.
Well, first, a shout out to Debbie. It's huge being able to even take on the business and then set up the second gen and even look to the third gen. It's fantastic. And all I keep thinking about is your desserts now. So my mind is completely wandered. With our company, Partners for Growth, that's the first one we'll chat about, I guess. And maybe later you'll hear a little more about some of the other ones. I guess it started, part of the journey was we'd have to go back about 40 years. That's when our family had set up, a restaurant and worked in that industry for a little bit, and then found that it wasn't going so well and had to make the heartbreaking decision to either move it forward or figure out, some other strategy to move forward or shut it down. And so we ended up shutting it down, took care of all of the people that were involved, and then took a hit of, just over six figures. And then sat around kind of the room and said, what happened? What did we do right, wrong? And, those back in those days, you do everything with a handshake deal. So we purchased a business with a handshake. There was no such thing as looking at financial statements. You didn't talk to a lawyer. You didn't talk to a banker. Why would you trust the banker? Just and wasting money, right? So of course that kind of brings you forward going, we should have figured something out. At that point, I just finished 10 years in retail, and I'd just come back from Beijing, where I was working with a multinational $1 billion company and helped set up their sales, service, training, and operations manuals in Beijing, and came back. And this is when we decided to shut down the company. And then we looked around the room. You always start with something positive, right? Said, we're a good looking family. That's good. That's great. But where did we go wrong, and how could we figure this out better? And so I was appointed as, why don't you walk into the banking industry? Because the bankers, although we didn't trust them, they actually helped businesses grow, didn't they? And they were able to help them with all areas of the growth. So I walked into a credit union and then followed suit into a charter bank, and then a federal bank, and then an international bank, and spent a decade doing that, learning the art of building, growing, and funding and businesses. How do you actually do it strategically? And in about 2013, we had a family member who was undergoing kind of the final cancer surgeries. And we were called to say, can you take the kids? And my husband and I had 3 kids at the time. And we said, you know what, let's quit this job in corporate land and take on 2 more kids. So we had 5 kids. And within 6 weeks, Partners for Growth was born, because that's how things happen.
Wow.
We tried to turtle down or hide for, about 6 weeks, but it didn't work out so good. We just kept getting phone calls. And so we spent 6 weeks planning tax and legal and everything. And we actually ended up getting some contracts in between, but officially started, and it'll be our 10-year anniversary this coming month. So we started it because there was a gap between entrepreneurs and access to capital. So that's where we parachute in. Partners for Growth comes in and supports you with a holistic understanding of how to actually set your foundation up right, build and grow and scale the company, and holistically look at when to use grants, when to use institutional capital, or potentially investors, and or a combination of all of them. And we're called Partners for Growth because we work with everyone. So we work from the bankers to the lawyers to every type of consultant there is possible, the accountants. We work on your tax strategy, succession planning. So we're kind of the choreographer of building out your informal advisory team. And so hence Partners for Growth was born about a decade ago.
Wow. I don't know if you've written a book before or not, but you both have quite the story. I met a woman last night, Rita, who actually started the pet food company in Calgary here during COVID. Her and her husband started experimenting with doing baked goods in the home. And now they're distributing and selling their pet food on Amazon. And she had said, raised her hand, which I'm not sure if this would be someone I could refer to you, but she said, we're now at that stage where we have to move to a distribution center or a facility. We can't do this in our home anymore. So is that where you would step in and help someone in the food or restaurant or beverage industry? Should they be calling you before they get to that stage?
They can call it any time, ideally before, because what you want to do is typically we get called in when they need financing. We ran out of money, or a bank said no. And so the accountants or the banker or the lawyers will say, go talk to Rita. And we spend an hour. We usually spend about an hour chatting. So if Melanie, you'd be a partner, you refer somebody over, we say hi. And there's no advice given. We say that very, very much up front. We're silent. We don't talk about who we work with. And the reason why there's no advice, because our insurance and legal contracts wouldn't allow it. So unless we're engaged, we can't give any advice. So we're just having a conversation. But in that conversation, we allow you to take the stage. So Melanie, if it was your business, I'd say, go ahead, share the stories, where are your pain points. And I try to guide you into a few different things and say, off you go. And then if you want to come back, or if you felt like something was working, then email us and let us know if we can give you a hand. So we're not about the whole, every time you call us, we're going to take some money from you. We're all about supporting our entrepreneurial community, because I believe very firmly that this is the backbone and the lifeblood of our economy and our country. So without small business, we don't have anything. So at the same time, I find that everybody we work with, all of our lawyers, all of our accountants, all of our consultants, we all do that 1 hour, so to speak, of let's just support them. And sometimes it means that I say, no, we're not the right fit for you. These are the steps you take first. Off you go, and maybe you need another connection, and we'll do that as well. And I think that once you kind of get into that group of like-minded value kind of people, we're all the same. We're all just kind of go, okay, well, no, just give her to Debbie now. Now give her to Liana, and give her to Jay, and we'll all kind of surround them, just like the name of our company. That's why we love it so much. It's like we all want to grow together. Everybody wins together. There's no need to take all of it. It's just no fun that way, right? To be alone.
Yeah.
I
was thinking, Debbie, you talked about, I know you're based in Ontario for Wow Desserts. You reside in Ontario, but you mentioned earlier about your distribution center, it being in Alberta, and we're definitely seeing Alberta starting to kind of boom in that regard, and even interprovincial migration to Alberta. Is there a reason why the distribution, or why your center or your head office, why it's in Alberta? And
well, I think that's where the former owners were at the time, and that's where we lived as well. But actually, from a taxation point of view, it made a lot of sense. And also a pipeline to the western side of Canada, and even going down into the US as well. So it checked off a lot of boxes. And we've had no problem getting with labor pool of people, although COVID was a little bit more difficult. But, I just, it's been great to be there. And so that's why we continue to expand. And we have a lot of people on our team who've been with us 10, 15, 25 years, actually. And so they all reside there. So if I moved, I would lose all those people. But we are set up over here too. And, there's always conversations about setting up another production facility. Maybe we would do it on, more towards this way, which makes a lot of sense. So you're not always shipping back and forth. I would say that shipping probably from Alberta to Ontario is cheaper than it would be from Ontario the other way. So believe it or not, there's been the benefit that I can tell you that. But no, we've been very happy in the province of Alberta. So, and we're going to continue to grow. We're still expanding. We just, we're just moved into a 20,000 square foot facility with really big freezers in there. And so it's exciting. We're continuing to launch. People are eating desserts, which is great.
Yes.
Let them eat cake.
Yeah, exactly. And, I know that, and I mean, things are starting to slow down for sure. But I think, people are watching what they spend probably when you're going to a grocery store on the retail side. But I find that people are still eating out, and restaurants are still busy, and people need that to go and celebrate a birthday or, an anniversary. And so they're willing to pay that bill, which is always a little bit higher, and get the dessert too. So, things are going really well. And,
Debbie, I want to ask you about your product line. I mean, you have your tried and true classics, but how often do you add a dessert, or add special occasion desserts? How often do you research and do that? Is it like once a year, or every 3 years, or like, I'm curious about that.
Twice a year we launch.
Twice a year?
Yep. And we figured out, we at one point would launch 8 different desserts.
Yeah, it's too crazy.
Can only take, and so it can only, the distributor can only list so many, and it was just too easy to get in, and people have their menus and they'll leave it on there for 6 months, and so it's hard to change. So we find about 3 is a good number, but we do a lot of private labels, so we're always doing R&D for that, and we always have different things in the hopper. The benefit of having our own inside sales team, I must say, is that anything that they hear, or talking with chefs direct, or finding in the marketplace, it trickles all the way up. Or somebody like yourself can give me a call and say, "Oh my God, Debbie, I have a great idea." And so we take.
You should have not ever said that, because I did not know that line was open.
You should see, one of the desserts I'm working on is because I went to Newfoundland with one of our sales team, and I wanted to see what's going on. And I met with a chef there. I'm like, you tell me, what are you seeing? What do you think? And he gave me an idea, and we're running with it, and we're starting to develop it really seriously. And I'm so excited. I just feel like, we're 40 years old, and I do have to share here because it's the perfect forum because Jay was there as well. But, we were named as one of the within the top 30 vendors for Cisco. And there was a night of innovation. I know. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And so we had to, so they took all the top 30 vendors one evening in the fall, and you had to just sort of have your booth and display stuff and innovation. And we did a lot of our vegan and gluten-free, and I did a couple of things that were unique on how we presented that. And we actually won. And so I take a step back and I go, to be innovative at 40 years old, how cool is that? And so that was just it was a really feel-good moment. And it just, solidified all the things that we're doing, asking people, where are the gaps? So when we launch, somebody might say, we need more white kind of cakes in the industry, or we have too many cheesecakes, or we need you to something like that. So there's more and more demand for vegan and gluten. I'll tell you that.
Girl.
So, yeah.
I got a million ideas.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Oh.
Along. Like I said, we're that's the good thing with being a family-run business, is that there's not a lot of red tape, really. So it's,
I just heard the music playing.
Yeah. And if we can mass produce it and it makes sense for what people are asking for, then it's great. And I'm just going to tie in something that Rita said too, because I have to tell you, the foundation of our business, a lot of it was literally on a handshake or written on a restaurant napkin. And that's how we made deals back in the day. My dad can tell you many of those. And, meeting with a company or an ingredient supplier, looking them and shaking their hand, looking them and say, we promise you these will be our payment terms. And now everything seems so contractually based, but we actually still have a lot of those relationships that we carry. And so I think there's a lot of really good people in the industry. And I think that business is business. Everybody's got to make some money, but at the same time, you got to do the right thing, right? And so choose as partners and that sort of thing is really important. So get it, Rita.
I a lot of partnerships that we have, it's quality, service, price.
Yeah. There's a book always on, and it's called In Search of Excellence by Tom Peters, and that was what my dad would always quote us as kids growing up. And it's like the premise is you don't have to be the biggest, but there's no reason why you can't be the best. And there's no reason why you can't serve with excellence. And so we don't have to be the biggest out there. But if we do it the best, then that's how we'll keep on growing. People will keep on coming back. And so listening to ideas, and helping more and that kind of thing. So,
I was going to ask you, Rita, and also Debbie, if you want to interject, but you talked about access to capital, and a lot, again, I was at an event last night and a lot of the entrepreneurs were bringing that up. And some of the data and the research that we have seen is that women tend to be less risk adverse. They will wait until they absolutely need to go to a bank to borrow. And at that point, they've leveraged all of their personal savings, they've remortgaged, they've maxed out their credit card. Statistically, that's what we see. Whereas men tend to ask for way more than what they actually need. And so we do see that from a gender specific in our line of business. I'm not saying all women are like that, but women tend to be far more conservative with the money, and then men are a little bit more aggressive. So you talked about your business and sort of you guys kind of had to walk away on that handshake and suffered some loss there financially. How were you able to kind of come back from that and access capital? Like, how did you rebuild?
Well, we took that time out, right? And I spent a decade in the industry. And then we came back and then started Partners for Growth. And about 5 years into Partners for Growth, we decided to take more risks again. But these are strategic and calculated risks. So there were companies that we were supporting externally. And then we decided to go in. And so then you can look at investing into businesses. And so either seed or supporting as investors. And so we did that. We took on 3 different companies in about the 5th and 6th and 7th year to test that out. And don't get upset, but no, we lost money there for all 3 again. But I tell you, without that first learning, we wouldn't have actually gotten to where we were today. And without that well, people say failure or falling. I just call them learnings. Without
Yeah.
those learnings, we actually don't even know how we get to where we are. I wouldn't be here today if that didn't actually happen. My background is a double major in cell biology and genetics with a minor in psychology, and then I moved into business, and then found it. I did really well in business and ran a retail location for a bunch of people, and somehow succeeded. And so that's where all the business side came in, and then learning right on the ground in corporate land. So at the end of the day, when we take a look at all of these pieces, we just kind of go back to, rule number one. And Debbie, I actually want to meet your dad.
Yeah.
And a lot of the a lot of the
Very-
clients we work with, it's that old school mentality. So
Yeah.
one of the largest, we don't ever talk about who we work with, obviously, as you guys know, confidentiality. So one of the very largest companies in BC that runs a food industry, they still do the handshakes. They have those 40-year relationships. And people say, oh, well, make it easier. Try to do a supply. No, you actually make that phone call and have a chat with them. And you have that conversation, catch up with the family. And that's, I believe, what makes a successful business. And you said, well, how did we win? I think that's why you won, is your relationships. It's your character,
Mhm.
integrity.
Yeah.
And because of those relationships, you're continually innovating because you're being asked and people are talking to you and you're listening and you're carrying those relationships. So why wouldn't you win? So congratulations on that again. But I strongly believe in that whole mentality of take care of your relationships. The rest of it always comes. It always comes.
Yeah. I would add to that. I agree with you what you're saying, Rita. I feel like there's so many similarities, and maybe that's an entrepreneurial side of things, what you go through. First of all, again, you're right, failures and however do you want to use, but you actually need that to understand what it's like when you get those wins. And it really makes you resilient. It makes you creative, makes you humble, it makes you nimble, which is all the things that you need to be able to change course if you need to. And there are things that we're doing that I'm glad things didn't go as we thought they would, because it never would have allowed us to explore this at all. And with the bank scenario, actually, when we sort of took over, we were being kicked out by our bank, to be honest. We had to shop around. And when you need the money and all of a sudden you don't have those relationships, and we were new coming in, and it's a whole big other story. But we ended up finding TD Bank, and we have a great relationship. And it's interesting, again, with my dad always saying, every time I go in Edmonton, you make sure you meet with the bank. You make sure you meet with the even though I might not have anything to talk about, it's creating a relationship, which, funny enough, I'm going out there. I've already sent a message to my bank manager. And at the times when I've needed to make a cash call, which we have, because we've got a lot of balls in the air right now, what is my level of risk tolerance, right? My risk for opportunity. Yeah. And I'm having those conversations. And now I realize I'm so glad that they know who I am. I really am. So the relationship. When I call my lawyer, because I've met with him so many times for no other reason, just to say, hey, how are you? This is how the business is going. He's already up to speed. And so, yeah, I can't say that enough of what Rita's saying. We're all speaking from the same thing. It's not easy. We go to bed at night with a lot of worry, right? And responsibility, a lot. But there's a lot of good things that you can do with it. And I can help shape people's lives.
So this makes me think about the next question. What are some of the things that you absolutely love about being an entrepreneur? At the same time, what are some of the things you actually don't like about it as much? You have that teeter-totter kind of love-hate.
I can start with that one.
Yeah,
I can take that on. Who the heck wants to be a CEO? And so at the beginning it was, ooh, wow. But who takes all the heat and everything, and who takes and then anything good that happens, that goes to your team. It's nothing to do with you. Nothing. Let's be clear about that. So being the CEO or being in the hot seat is actually no fun. It's absolutely no fun. And it really is the person that's going to take care of everything. And it becomes, quite hard because you have to know everything and be able to handle both staff, your vendors, your clients, and everything else that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And it makes you feel sometimes that you're just sitting by yourself and going, who signed up for this? Oh, that was me, and why am I doing this? Oh, that was me again. I chose this path. And so you have to have a really, really strong understanding of why you're doing this. And that will get you through where you're going. So the best part about it is probably also why it's the worst part of it. But the best part then becomes, we're doing this because we didn't want any other families to struggle or go through the pain and the lessons and the hurt that we went through. So our goal is to try to say, let me save you, Debbie. Let me save you, Liana. Melanie, whoa, here's some thoughts and considerations. I won't tell you what to do. And I just tell you my stories from the past about what I've gone through. And these things where I failed or had my learnings, they allow me to have empathy and be able to work very, very well with our clients. Because I can tell you this, if you've made a mistake, I've already done it and I've done it better. And so I can also tell you how to get out of it now too. So I think that's really important to be able to share that. So there's the good and the bad.
Do you have clients, you were just saying you won't tell them what to do, but do you have clients who say, Rita, please tell me what to do? Because I would be that person.
They do that all the time, but I can't do that. Do you know why, Liana? One of
legalities.
Well, there's legality wise, but even further than that, and this is one of our base mottos, we prepare you and want you to have empowerment. And so if I make that decision for you, or if I say do this, or you can't see it, Liana, how can you not see it? Because I can see it, but you're in it. But if you don't take that and make that decision to say, yes, I'm going to go with this supplier, or I'm going to go ahead and ask for that $1 million, or I'm going to take on this investor or take a new partner on. If you don't actually make that decision, you won't own the decision. And then everything that comes through with that decision, good or bad, doesn't matter what it is, that's your empowerment. And the what I just spoke to you about us losing, and those 3 that we lost less than 6 figures, but very close to it. But we got out of it faster each time.
Right.
But I own that. And that has empowered me to be stronger. So you can try to bully me or say a bunch of things to me. And, I don't get bruised that easily anymore because of that. Right.
You're a good mentor.
And,
gives me chills.
So I'd be happy to chat with you anytime, Liana, but you're going to make every decision.
That's great. Yeah. Wow. Debbie, what about you? What about this same question?
I think the high that I get from this job is when we get the wins, and I mean wins that my team gets, whether they're at a trade show and somebody comes up and they just, the feedback that they get, and that just brings them up on a high. I feel fortunate that I can help inspire other people. I feel fortunate that I could help, steer the ship is really what it is, right? And I'm the one that's looking at the 5-year vision, the 10-year vision, even though strategically you're like, we'll plan for 2 to 3 years. It's hard to plan for outward, but I'm always looking, what does 5 years or 10 years look like? And so, and looking way ahead. And so that's my commitment to my team, that I'm not letting go and letting my sights off of where we want to go. And I want to scale and I want to get bigger. What does that mean? And I've got to do that very strategically, because growth can take you to the grave if you don't doing it purposefully and very carefully. And I think we're doing a really good job of that. And so again, when we're recognized, say from like a Cisco, those things, those are the wins that make me kind of go, oh my God. Or I was at a show the other week and people are coming by and they're like, I have to tell you, that's my favorite dessert. I've been using your desserts. That's the win. It just makes you keep on going. Desserts are fun. Honestly, I can show up at an event and I bring desserts and it brings a smile to everybody's faces. It's just a really cool product to work with, that in itself. And I love the ability that, again, we can introduce. I like the innovation part. I love the creativity. I do the marketing and I work with a graphic designer. And it's pretty much the 2 of us with input from my team. But, so that gets me going too. And when I see that it really resonates with people, and that they love looking at it, they keep our brochures, they love our website. It's very informative. I can be nimble We just sponsored something, actually a talk show with the Oilers. So there's a lot of mention on WOW. So I was able to, in a second, go on and create a whole new web page and a landing page for that. It's cool. That's what gets me going. But, everybody has a stake in our companies. I call them all stakeholders. And so I might be a shareholder, but you guys are all stakeholders and you have just as much invested in the company as I do. So I've got to make sure that I keep on doing my job so that you have jobs for your families. And that's what's important to me. And if I can sort of be a steward in this industry, meet really great people, and help do good things, that's really important.
Both of you have so much, like I can feel it just in the words and in your body language. You really care about the people that you serve. I wanted to ask each of you something. I think this must be personal for you, but you talked about the Robin Hood Association before we went live, and Rita, you talked about buying a farm. Before we wrap up, I would love to hear what the Robin Hood Association is, and then Rita, why did you guys buy a farm?
Yeah, well, I can go quickly with the Robin Hood Association. Yeah, I was sharing this with the girls on the call here for all of our listeners, and this is something that we've been doing for 33 years, and we hire a group called the Robin Hood Association, and there's about 15 of them, and most of them have Down syndrome or some kind of disability, and they fold all the boxes that our cakes go into. And so it could be something I could easily automate, and especially with COVID, you're watching every cost, everything, but that is just one area we'll never ever take away, because it just to have the opportunity to provide meaningful employment to people. Yeah. It's kind of like giving back to the community. And again, it's not always about the bottom line. There's things that you can do when you're protecting the bottom line, but there are also things that are just about doing the right thing. So I actually, I put this in my brochure. If you go to our website, and you can see that's part of the group picture. And also we've put a couple pictures on the bottom of our boxes, and that's Bethany right here, and she's folding one of the boxes. But it really, if you have a bad day, you just have to walk down into that area, and it brings a smile. And I'll just share with you guys one really cute story. When we'd had them for 25 years, they'd been around, and I picked 3 of the longest standing employees. And I went up to each one of them and said, why do you like working for WOW, with WOW Factor, right? And, again, they're at different age levels. And I'll never forget the one gentleman, and he was like, and he got all excited. He was like this, and he goes, I like working for WOW Factor because I get to listen to my favorite country music all day. I get to celebrate birthdays with my friends and eat all the chocolate cake that we want.
Oh,
and
I love that.
took a step back, and I thought, just, in the day and age where we all want a lot, and this just makes them happy. And it took until COVID for 2 of the employees to miss their first sick day in 22 years. So they're loyal.
Wow.
Loyal employees, and they mean a lot. So I would challenge any business out there, if you have any opportunity to employ people, that doesn't take a lot, but that would actually work in your environment, your situation, you should take a look, because I can't tell you how fulfilling it is.
Yeah,
it's so important. Well, as a consumer, or when I support local, I actually will look for a business that has some way of giving back to the community or their employees, whether it's through the environment or helping people in their community. So that's really important to me. I appreciate you sharing that.
Thanks for asking.
Rita, you bought a farm.
I'm gonna go back to what you just said, Melanie and Debbie. I'm gonna echo the same thing. We don't work with any clients unless they actually. You can get as big as you want. You can have the take over the world ideas. It doesn't bother us. But if you can't support local, and if you can't start with our own community, we really can't work with you. And I've had a lot of people yell and tell us off, and we're like, no. Did you need help setting up a sub here locally? And we'll help you with that too. And so I think that's huge, because without supporting us first, how can we all continue, right? So that's huge for us. So you're asking about the farm. So and Debbie, you had mentioned 5-10-year plans. So we always have our own plans in place. And so I seem to walk through things in decades. The first decade was in retail, culminating in Beijing. And then the next decade was in finance. And then the third decade, we did Partners for Growth. Before the end of the third decade, our job was to be able to our job was to be able to go into a couple of different areas for early retirement. But I thought I just heard you say we're going to break. Do you want me to stop and share after? Okay.
No, we're good.
Okay, we're good. Okay. So we decided to, in 2020, when everything happened all over the world, a few ladies and I got together and had the opportunity to just purge some of the concerns we've had because we hadn't seen each other, and that's not normal. All my consulting partners, all the people we get to work with, we get to see each other, and that's a normal thing. And so there was an opening. We said hi to one another, and one of us had a problem and just kind of opened it up to a bunch of women. What do you think happened? We just kind of started dissecting the whole thing and said, no, what's actually really going on? And she was about to sell a big portion of the business. And we actually said, no, the problem was you just didn't like this piece of it. So we saved the company, put her back to where she wanted to be, allowed her to, outsource the other part of it. And she became happy. But then we turned around and did that for each one of us. The rest of us, we were there till like 1 a.m. There was wine. There was some good stuff, really amazing food, all homemade, local. but that really helped. And we found that how else can entrepreneurs get together? And this is how we started the second company, the podcast, and it's called Serenity Now for Entrepreneurs.
Right.
A little bit of tongue in cheek, but it was a way for us to inspire, connect, and support our entrepreneurial community. And it's just a give back passion project. We don't make any money out of it. We get so much out of it though. And we're just supporting others. And so, but during that time, COVID, everyone made decisions, right? Everyone said, life is short. Mm-hmm. What do you actually really want to do? And we'd always wanted to do this. We wanted to get to the acreage. But we did the 4 a.m. to midnight work. That's just corporate. That's life. And that's all we ever knew. And then my husband said, I think we need to take a break. During COVID, I think 2020, we had 3 days off. In 2021, we had started to take a couple of days off. And that's when he said, let's go take a break and do a drive from BC, which is where I'm born and raised, over to Alberta. And I said, there's no way we can possibly do that. That's just impossible. To the morning of. And we got in the car and drove. And we ended up at a friend's farm. And she's in Westlock over by Jarvie. And we spent 6 hours on the farm, 150 animals, soaking in the gorgeous sun. And if you've never been to Alberta, the sky touches the ground and it is gorgeous. There was no noise. There was no pollution, no traffic, no anything. And so 6 hours, we then, started, set up a base. And within 4 days, went to 5 different counties, looked at a bunch of different places with a whole bunch of different realtors, and then put an offer in and drove back. And they accepted our offer. And we got home to our 3 kids and said, guess what? Uncle David's coming over. He's a realtor. Why is Uncle David coming over? We're going to list the house and we're moving. And so we put it up, and in under 60 days, we had packed and moved, and we're in Alberta. And we got here November 1, 2 weeks before the big flood, and experienced winter. Lived in Canada our whole lives, never understood what winter was because it's just mild, right? We don't know what this is. Yeah. So that was fun, but we had a clean property with no pesticides, nothing used, a beautiful 3-tier pond, 110 square foot deck, where you could just breathe. And so we started with chickens. We're doing the extension to that this year. Started the seedlings this year. I grew 300 plants. I think it's by sheer grace of God, not by me, because I, can't say thank you to me for that. And everything we have, we're just giving and grow. They're just giving it away because we don't have the setup for everything. So we're like, who wants this? And we've got, farm fresh eggs. They are nothing like you've ever tried before. And our chickens are spoiled rotten. They get everything. But we're outside on the ground and looking at the sky versus sitting in the office. Yeah. So success to other people could mean very different things. And I always ask our clients, what's your end goals? Where do you want to be? you know, what, and try to make sure you have that, because you can't fly an airplane without knowing where your end goals are. And so you have to have a destination. So this was our destination. This is where we got. And pretty much 95% of the friends and family thought we were crazy, thought we joined a cult, gave our money away. We're like, where are you guys going?
Alberta.
Alberta, to a place that we'd never heard of in our lives, but we found it, or it found us, and or we feel it was, you know, through faith that we got here. And
yeah.
we've never been happier, and we've started the healing process, and I'm able to give back more. We can run, you know, our 3 companies plus.
That's
How is
amazing.
it possible? Yeah,
it is.
So
Alberta has it. As a BC girl, I love Alberta too. I'm Alberta bound too. But we're wrapping up, and really want to thank Debbie. It was delicious, and it was insightful. It was inspiring, Rita. And Melanie, it's always awesome to pal around with you for an hour time when we're here together. So thank you. And one quick little advice, Debbie.
Oh my gosh. I have so many of them, but
nope, 30 seconds. That's all we got, girl.
I'm going to say there's no such thing as luck. I think a lot of people used to say, "Oh, you're so lucky and this happened." No, you don't understand what went on that behind the scenes. And so carpe diem, seize the moment, take opportunities, be bold, you know, make decisions, and don't look back. Don't look back.
Yeah, be delicious.
Exactly. And so you'll always glean something from whether it worked out or it didn't, but you'll have learned something.
Rita?
My advice is find your happy. Give yourself permission to actually say, I'll take 2 hours out in the next 48 hours, do it. And say, I need to sit down and figure out what my happy is. Because sometimes we don't give permission to ourselves or think we need someone, and nobody asks us to do that. Find your happy, and then do exactly what Debbie just said. Go for it. Carpe diem. Don't stop till you get there. And you might be surprised how quickly you might get there once you just actually say it out loud. Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Thank
Liana,
you.
Mel,
Thanks again.
Jay, Debbie.
Thank
awesome.
you.
Such a pleasure.
We'll be back May 12th with some awesome moms and some chefs and talking about all wonderful things. See you again, Mel.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.